You're listening to The Audit, presented by IT Audit Labs.
Welcome to The Audit by IT Audit Labs. We are here again to talk about personal information security in a modern era. Joining me is the IT Audit Labs crew. Hi, guys.
Hey, Mandy.
Hey, Mandy.
So, Eric, where'd we leave off last time?
We were talking about cell phones and your cell phone number and treating that as if the cell phone number was PII, so not using that as a way to identify yourself in public, like at a coffee shop or something along those lines, where those retailers are using that to identify you as a consumer and use that to get into your rewards program or something like that. So we were saying that you could use an alternative phone number through like a Google Voice, for instance, or from a service that like Burner would provide you with a cell phone number that you could either keep permanently or semi-permanently, or something that you could delete frequently. And now with VoIP services, voice over IP services like Microsoft Teams, for instance, for businesses, they provide phone numbers for your business. So if, for instance, your business was getting a lot of spam calls to a particular phone number, it's pretty easy to just get a new VoIP number associated with your business. Not like the old days where you had to get a POTS line from the cellular, or the not cellular, but the phone company, and then they'd come in and punch it down to the 66 block, and it was a whole production. But now it's pretty easy. It's, minutes instead of weeks.
That's great to hear. It's something you can do, much like I think of on my cell phone, how I can block a specific caller. Being able to do that for this line sounds like it'd be beneficial as well.
Yeah, and, I think along not to belabor the cell phone number thing, but it's kind of it gets into a slippery slope of you want to be reachable, but at the same point in time, you want to be a little bit protected. So something like putting your phone number on your dog's collar is one that is in that gray space, right? You want to be able to be reached in the event that the dog is missing. But at the same point in time, the dog being maybe out in public at a dog park off leash, somebody could get access to that phone number, and then you'd potentially receive some unwanted calls or texts. If that was your main number, maybe you want to think about putting that on what I would consider like a Google Voice number, which could be a semi-public number, but not your main number.
That is how I get on my dates. I just take Rex to the dog park off leash. He's running around advertising my phone number. But that's really good advice. It does.
Oh.
Dudes love dogs. Kind of like chicks love babies, right?
Oh, that's like really extreme blind dating, but that wasn't funny.
I should make my own reality show, like dog park dating. So we're going to edit that part out. And
I gotta believe that. That's awesome.
What are we going to talk about now?
Andy's using the podcast to troll for dudes.
I mean, I'm thirsty, so. This is why I communicate with the editor, though. Am I turning red?
That.
Yeah, so that's interesting, Mandy. Good luck at the dog park. Let's talk about credit and protecting your credit, because I think we look at pieces of information that we treat privately or publicly, and one of the most private pieces of information that we have is our Social Security number. And that Social Security number, issued at birth or close to birth, follows us for the rest of our lives. And unfortunately, those social security numbers are used by companies and other entities to identify us. And the reason why it's problematic is, as we know, we can be subject to having that information compromised and then be the subject of a either tax fraud, or somebody's filing fraudulent taxes in our name or opening credit in our name. I think some of the more egregious ones are where people get a hold of someone's child's social security number and then open up credits in that child's likeness and start doing malicious things with that, with that child's social security number. And it's really hard to come back from an information breach of this sort, right? Where your credit is stolen. It usually requires quite a bit of work to find out where all of the fraudulent credit reports were opened, or not reports, but all the fraudulent credit was opened, and then close them, and then keep yourself protected going forward. So as we go around and we do these talks, the simplest way to solve for this problem is to freeze your credit. And you can do that directly with the credit bureaus. So there are the 3 credit bureaus that most people know about, and that's Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. And then there's a 4th bureau, and the name of that bureau is Innovis. And if you ever get in the mail the pre-approvals, so like, if you pre-approve for, a car, or you might see some of the extended warranty things for your car, or things like that, those are usually coming from data that Innovis has collected and sold. So we like to advocate for freezing your credit with these 4 bureaus, Experian, Equifax, TransUnion, and Innovis, and you can freeze the credit directly with those bureaus. And that's the best way to do it. When you go into those bureaus to freeze your credit, pretty simple process, takes maybe 5 to 10 minutes each. You'll want a password manager when you do it, because they're going to ask you some questions like, what was the name of the street you grew up on, or who was your childhood best friend? And as we know from our previous episodes, we never answer those truthfully. We make up an answer and we put that answer in the password manager. That way, if that information is out in our social media profiles, it doesn't matter the name of my street, because the answer to my secret question is made up. So anyhow, we store that information in a password manager. Usually there's a PIN associated with it. When I froze mine years ago, they would mail you, so out of band, send you a PIN number. You get on like a little postage card size document, and then you'd use that to log into the account. I think it's all online. But anyhow, those are the 4 bureaus. In addition to freezing your credit, and one other point on the freezing your credit, there are services that will offer to lock your credit, or they'll use some other term that means the same thing. And usually those are a paid service, or they're offered by companies to you after your data has been breached. So as part of their breach mitigation, you'll get a letter that says, oh, we think your information has been compromised. Here is a service that we're paying for you for a year to protect your credit. That's all well and good. However, we don't recommend going through a third party. Usually the third party is a company, a sub-company of one of these credit bureaus. It's much better to just freeze the credit yourself. And the reason for that is then you directly control the freezing or unfreezing, or they call it thawing. So freezing and thawing your credit. So if your credit's locked with these 4 bureaus and you want to get a new loan, let's say you're going to get a car, you go into the dealership or you work with your bank, and they're going to run a credit check on you. And that'll come back with a credit score and your credit worthiness for them to evaluate if you're responsible enough to repay the loan or your debt to income ratio is low enough that you can take on a new loan. At any rate, they will typically work with either 1 or 2 bureaus to score your credit, depending on where you are in the country. These entities tend to be geographic, and I forget exactly where those lines are, but Experian may be more in the Midwest, TransUnion on the West Coast, Equifax East Coast. It's not clear cut like that, but there is some geographic distribution. And I may not have those geographies exactly right, but that's the theory of it. So if you're in the Midwest, going to get a car loan, you can just ask them, which bureau do you work with? They say Experian. Okay, you can then just reach out to Experian, and then for a period of 5 days, you could thaw your credit. And that would thaw it for anyone running a check against you. I like to advocate, if you're interested in your credit score increasing or staying high, one of the things to do is to limit the credit pulls against your score. So every time your credit is checked, it decreases your score. And the reason, I guess the theory behind that is the credit agencies look at that as a way that you're trying to go out and get a loan, and that would negatively impact your credit score. But anyway, you can unfreeze it. I would say, if you're strategic about it and you want your credit score to be as high as it can be, which is 850, is to bundle your pulls in a short period of time. So if you know you want some sort of home equity line of credit, you want a car, and you want that new refrigerator from Home Depot, all of these things are going to require a credit hit. Do them all in a short period of time rather than spreading them out, over months. Of course, we can't help it when the refrigerator breaks and we need a new one, and we want to get that Home Depot credit card for the free interest. Don't stress yourself out about it, but if it works out, great, bundle it. And then you've just left that freeze open or that thaw open for a short duration of time. The reason why I like to advocate for that is then it just automatically closes. You don't have to think about it. Unfortunately, the way credit was built is our credit is inherently open. So if someone has access to your Social Security number, they can potentially open credit in your name without you even knowing about it. So one of the ways to check that is a free annual credit report. And that won't give you your credit score, but it'll tell you all of the open sources of credit that you currently have and ones that you've previously had. One of the big factors to increasing your credit score is that factors into your credit worthiness is your on-time payments. Your credit report will show you how many on-time payments you've had. They drop off after a period of, I think it's either 3, 5, or 7 years, where if you had some unfortunate late payments, that drops off after a period of time. If you had a bankruptcy, that drops off after, I believe it's 7 years. Different things impact your credit score. You can take a look at that annual credit report, make sure that if there is a late payment on there, sometimes you can negotiate to have it removed. If there's things on there that don't look right, you can work with the entity to have them investigated and removed. But it's just something to stay on top of. Nowadays, with mobile devices and how connected we are, you can tie your credit cards to your like a mobile app, and then anytime a transaction is made, you'll get a notification that you just spent $20 at Home Depot or whatever. And that's kind of a good way too to always be monitoring what's happening with charges against you or your family members, because then if something doesn't look right, you can catch it right away. And then along those lines, I'd also advocate to use a credit card in those instances instead of a debit card. So if you use a debit card and that number is captured or stolen, that's direct access to your bank account, and that can be pretty impactful if the thieves hit your daily withdrawal limit or make charges that deplete that bank account before you notice it. So if you use credit card, that's going to hit your credit. You can work with that credit card company to say that your credit card was stolen or the number was stolen or what have you, and then those charges mitigated without it impacting your ability to pay your rent, mortgage, what have you. Not that if you have a debit card, you can still work with them to get that money back if it was fraudulent, but the money is still out of your account, and the money that you're expecting to be there to pay a bill might not be there. Any thoughts or questions on that you guys have personally experienced?
I did want to jump in and just bring up, it was interesting that you brought up locking your kids' credit. Just an interesting thought, but I know I had experience with helping my parents, and it's just a key point to bring up, helping people like grandparents or our parents that might not be so familiar with these the credit bureaus and how the process would be of blocking it. I actually sat down with my parents, this is maybe 4 years ago now or so, and they created a free account on all three of them, and we locked it, and they were locked. I don't know how long they've been locked. It's been 3 or 4 years, but they just bought a house this year, and the bureau came back and said, your credit's frozen or locked, so can you unlock your Experian account so we can do your credit pull? I thought that was cool that it was working. I had forgot, right, we did it a while back, and it came back that it was locked, so I thought that was neat that happened.
Was it hard to set up the locks for them, or the freezing the credit?
For example, on Experian, when you create your account, they have like a page, and it's just like a big lock button, and you just hold down on it, and like the switch goes, and then it locks, and it might really take like 5 minutes, but you flip the switch, right, as a tangible thing, you see it lock, and then you're good. So yeah, it was very easy. It might have taken us an hour to do all of it, just them setting up their passwords, and you know how that goes, making sure they're using strong passwords and getting the password manager set up so I don't get that call saying they forgot their password, and so that helps out big time.
Sure. There's a interesting story about the CEO of LifeLock, and this is going back a couple of years, maybe close to a decade or so, where in order to advertise for his company, he gave his social security number out in public, like put it on billboards, might have been on the side of vehicles or something, I forget, but definitely published it out in marketing material to say, hey, I can put my social security number out there, and my company is so good that it will prevent credit being opened in my name. The funny part of it is, I think his identity was stolen, I don't know, it was like 10 or 15 times, something like that. And credit was opened in a variety of different places. I think it was like cell phone accounts, maybe some loans, other things like that. But the point being that, LifeLock advertises that they can lock your credit as a service. It's not the same thing as going in and freezing your credit directly with the bureaus.
Yeah, and I know when I talk to people about things like this and freezing your credit, it doesn't necessarily protect you from people collecting your social security number, right? They're still out there looking for that info. They're still looking to get your HIPAA information. They're still going to be there looking for that. But it takes away kind of that big incentive for cyber criminals to get that information, because once they're able to get it, there's another step in the way for them to be able to get money from having that information, right? So it puts a barrier in place that prevents them from collecting monetary value from your information, which is really good. And one of the questions I always get from people when I talk to them about freezing their credit is like, well, what do I do when I want to apply for a loan, right? What happens when I want to get that credit card? And really, the sites make it pretty easy to do, as Nick was saying, right? A lot of them have just like a button you can push on your phone or on the app, or even with some of the older people I've spoken to about this who aren't necessarily comfortable going to a website and typing their information in or doing those sorts of things, right? You can do it over the phone with pretty much all of the bureaus and set that up and set up your private PIN and do all of those things kind of via phone. So if you want to call and just talk, right, there's other options for people who might be slightly less tech savvy when it comes to the internet. So it makes it kind of a no-brainer in a lot of ways, honestly.
Yeah. Well, I think that's all I had on that topic. I can't think of anything else that we've talked about recently related to credit theft. I think it's just one of those things. It's just that diligence to sit down, schedule some time to go in and do these things. And then same thing with the password manager. You know, if you can get in 5 a day, whatever it is, right? Just continue to make forward progress. I think that's the best way to do it. It can seem kind of daunting if you have hundreds of different passwords you want to put in the password manager, or have to set aside a lot of time to do this credit reports and locking of credit. If you just set, maybe plan locking 1 or 2 a week, get that annual credit report and review it with your family, you'll be in good shape.
Those are all great points, and this concludes our series on personal information security in a modern era. Many thanks to Eric, Nick, and Kyle for helping lead us through. If you'd like more information on locking a minor child's credit, we did recently have a blog posting about that. It'll give a website with some resources and how to make that happen. For more information on anything else cybersecurity related, please visit our website at www.itaudit.labs.com. We're also on all the socials, and we hope to see you again on our next episode. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you.
IT Audit Labs assesses security risk and compliance. Our threat assessments find the soft spots before the bad guys do. Whether you are looking for a point solution or a broader security program, contact IT Audit Labs to reduce your organizational risk.